The most important thing our leaders can do during this public health crisis is listen to the experts and follow the science. Health experts in Missouri, as well as the White House Coronavirus Task Force, has made recommendations to our governor. He just doesn't want to listen. For example, the Trump administration has recommended to Governor Parson since mid-August to issue a statewide mask rule. They've asked him to issue mask rules for areas with surging rates, and he just refuses. We need a reset on our entire coronavirus strategy, and I've laid out a plan to do just that. We need more urgency and engagement around contact tracing and testing. Our local leaders need data-driven guidelines to guide their decision-making on learning models for students. The governor should convene medical and economic experts and then quarterback every aspect of the state's response. Instead, our current governor is leaving it up to local officials who just don't have access to the same level of resources or expertise that the state does, and it's created a confusing patchwork response. I'm concerned about each sector of our economy because every Missouri worker is essential to their family's livelihood. And let's face it, no matter how or where you work, you've been impacted by COVID. Our state's unemployment rolls are higher than the Great Recession. So the economic fallout from this health crisis continues, especially as we see cases surging in parts of our state that previously had seen lower case levels. That threatens our recovery. We've also seen school districts across the state not returning to full in-person school. So parents are struggling with childcare and learning from home during their work hours. We will not recover economically until we get the virus under control. Until we get this virus under control, we need to continue support workers and employers. We've laid out a comprehensive coronavirus response plan. We need a complete reset on our strategy. I would convene public health experts, economists, and representatives from workers and labor unions to design what our response should look like. We also shouldn't pull the safety net out from underneath our working families. They still need a hand because this crisis is not over. Yes, it's clear to me that Missouri will need more federal help in the future. This pandemic and the economic fallout from it is not over. And unfortunately, Washington, D.C. just seems to be stuck. As governor, I would work closely with our federal delegation to advocate for Missouri workers and businesses, as well as local governments who are facing tough budgets right now. Continued economic disruption will create a cyclical crisis if local budgets get to a point where municipalities and local governments start laying off workers and basic services aren't being provided. We need to make sure that the CARES Act funding that we have now is going where it can to help support our fragile economy. And we need to make sure additional aid that comes into the state is deployed efficiently to help in our recovery. This is an area where people are looking to leaders in government for concrete policy, not just talk, but action. And I've released a comprehensive opportunity agenda for Black Missourians that addresses economic opportunity and access to health care. My plan also calls for important changes, such as enshrining a policy of non-discrimination in our state constitution, and that can have a significant impact on employment and housing policy. People, as I said, are just tired of talking about what should happen, and now they are ready to see action from their leaders. And state government can lead the way in designing policy that addresses systemic inequality. I've called for rethinking some of our economic development programs to put a greater emphasis on supporting minority entrepreneurship. I support Medicaid expansion so people can have access to health insurance, but also in order to use that health insurance, they need access to care. And so I've called for primary care clinics in underserved communities. And in my current position as state auditor, I've called out predatory financial practices by municipal courts that create cycles of poverty and mistrust. Laid out a comprehensive criminal justice and policing reform plan. The current governor has just shown no interest in taking this issue head on, but I have. And for me, it starts with creating more transparency and accountability in the system. For years, we have debated and discussed policy approaches to restore the broken trust between the community and the criminal justice system, and now it's time for action. My plan calls for stronger oversight, better training, and clear accountability measures. I do support local control for the Kansas City Police Department. Look, when government is closer to the people, there is greater responsiveness and accountability. And I expect that the people of Kansas City will have their say on this. And if they want local control, then as governor, I will work alongside them to make it happen. Welcome assistance from federal law enforcement to address the heartbreaking toll that gun violence is having on our families and our communities. And if that assistance can help solve crime and prevent more homicides, then we should welcome that help. But I do want to be clear, I don't support federal law enforcement patrolling the streets because it's unnecessarily provocative. The people of Kansas City and St. Louis, where this operation is happening as well, deserve to know exactly what is happening in their communities when it comes to federal assistance. I think it's important to take a step back here and recall that Governor Parson said that he wants kids to return to full in-person school regardless of how bad COVID is in our state. He said it didn't matter where we were with the virus because he said kids would just go back to school and get COVID and go home and get over it. It was a shocking statement. But I think it was also illustrative of a failure of leadership. Instead of him taking action and providing guidance and resources for a return to school, the governor didn't do anything to prepare districts on how to handle learning given COVID transmission levels in their communities. Then, when the economic fallout from the virus hit, the first place the governor went to cut funding was K through 12 education, cutting $250 million of school funding over the summer. So today, hundreds of thousands of our public school students are learning online from home, and we know that there's a digital divide. That digital divide doesn't exist just in the rural parts of our state, but in the urban parts of our state too. The CARES Act money that was sent in a bipartisan way from DC to help with relief to COVID, a response to COVID, has and can help with this. but we can't keep cutting education funding and expecting to achieve equity in education. And as governor, my priority will be economic recovery and restoring full funding for our school districts. Voters have spoken, and voters have expanded eligibility for health insurance coverage for working Missourians who previously fell into the coverage gap. That's what Medicaid expansion does. And Medicaid expansion is good for Missouri from a health standpoint, but also from an economic standpoint, because it means billions will be invested every year into our healthcare system. It'll reduce the number of uninsured patients seeking care at hospitals, which will make insurance less expensive for everybody else. It will create new jobs and opportunities in communities that really need them right now. That's why I supported Medicaid expansion all along. Governor Parson does not support Medicaid expansion. I don't believe that the governor can be trusted to follow the will of the voters, and we can let history be our guide here. On Clean Missouri, on Right to Work, Governor Parson thinks he knows better than the voters. As governor, I'll implement Medicaid expansion, and we can do it without raising taxes or gutting funding for other programs. And I would point out that numerous nonpartisan studies, as well as the experience of 37 other states that have expanded Medicaid, show that expansion generates cost savings in the state budget. It reduces the money we're spending on care for the uninsured. It provides a greater cost share by the federal government for some of these existing beneficiaries, and it generates more economic activity in the state. It's critical to listen to the will of Missourians because it builds trust with the people that I am sworn to serve. As governor, I'll respect the will of the voters. That's especially important as we move forward with voter-approved Medicaid expansion. Governor Parson, he has shown that he won't. He supports the current effort to overturn Clean Missouri. He sponsored legislation to overturn the voters when they implemented new rules to combat puppy mills and problem dog breeders. And he voted to eliminate common sense gun safety laws that Missourians overwhelmingly pass. We don't have to guess if Governor Parson will respect the will of the voters because history has told us over and over again he won't.